All right, Chris is coming, I think. I'm going live because I'm in one of those. Let's see.
All right, you.
Okay. We don't want that. We need the live. Where'd it go? Oh, wait, is that it? Yes. Why did it go there? Ooh, they're so annoying sometimes. Welcome to the Everyday Sniper. You got Frank at Sniper's Hide, and I decided to come on. Yep, I'm waiting for Chris. I went live real fast because I was in that kind of mood today. I want to vent about my Apple really quick. So went to the range this week. Chris had classes, and I go home and I shot a video because I've been running the Craddox in the 6 arc, and I'm going to talk about that. But this morning I had like 30 minutes, and I had brought in a bunch of the footage yesterday, or yeah, last night. I brought in a bunch of my footage to my Final Cut. And I hadn't been near it since we were traveling and we were away, major land, and I can jump in a little on some major land and stuff. So I dropped in the footage, and this morning I was going to do like a little, 6-second cuts of an intro, and I'm like getting the clip right where I want it. I'm kind of playing the playhead, nudging it, and I'm dropping it in, and I drop it in, and I go to play it back, and it's wrong. And I'm like, what is it doing? And it keeps like clipping my clips and editing it. And then I can shrink the clip on like their little magnetic with Apple. I can't expand the clip. So it won't let me, it's like it keeps like trimming my clips on its own. And it's like a new version that they updated since I've been traveling. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That you guys went and changed Final Cut, changed how it works and edits, and I'm hitting every button to get it back to where it was. I'm gonna like kill this friggin' project and try to start it over and see if some setting change. But it's like so annoying. I was editing. I go along. I do it how I do it. I made decisions years ago to do Final Cut instead of Premiere. When Final Cut made that big change and everybody rebelled, I said, I'm going to stick with it. And within 3 years, Final Cut was amazing. I love it. And I like the plugins. I like how it works. I can do Final Cut fast. I can use Premiere, but it takes me longer. But Final Cut, I learned. And now it's like, it's different. And I'm just like, coming in on autopilot. And I'm like, and it's not, it's like changing my clips. I'm like, yeah. So, and Chris is running around silly, but anyway, yeah. And it's like, it just right now, like I went and I drove myself crazy. And like I woke up good mood, had a coffee, had a bagel, and instead of walking past the computer, I thought I was going to do this quick 30 minutes of edited before I jump on. And now it put me all in this frazzled, I hate you mood because it changed shit. And I'm super psyched. Like Chris, and Chris was coming on. He's got, nothing's where it's supposed to be. So he's delayed, and I just didn't want to wait until, because I wanted to come on at 10. And as it was, I screwed myself up and didn't walk upstairs until like 10:01, and then I had to restart everything to make sure my internet was good. And it's 10:05, 10:06, and I said I'm going live. So if he jumps on, I'll just tell him, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, it was like so aggravated. So the like on I had Major Land and the videos and the stuff. Chris Roberts from CR2 did the Major Land videos for me. So Chris Roberts came up and he filmed all that, and he's been doing and editing the Major Land videos that I've been posting. And I have one more kind of a final wrap up, and he has a few little interviews with some competitors that he took. So I just wanted like a 3 to 5 minute wrap up and that he's finishing. And so I want to thank Roberts for doing those. But yeah, the Major Land stuff, I volunteered. Like Major Land stuff I volunteered. I was I have no affiliation to that. I like the idea behind the match. They reached out to me in the second year, and I believe they invited me the first year. I was probably busy because they were super close to my travels. So I had that year where I had said to Mark, "Hey, we're here. Do you want to just go south to Major Land, waste 2 days, and then the event will start and do that?" And he didn't want to do it. And I said, "Well, I'm going to do it." So that's how I started, just helping with Major Land. I was doing a class in the area, a reasonable drive time. I was able to fly in, teach the class, drop down, go to Major Land, and then fly out. So it worked. Well, then, they shimmy shuffled a little bit of the dates, made the dates a little easier for me, and I took a greater role. Well, even Laura actually stepped up first. And so Laura, like looking at the RO situation, because originally, you know, they look at it as a range officer. And if you search, well, how do you do range officer? NRA, paper stuff, right? They have all kinds of training programs. And so Laura comes out of the prissy world, and she RO'd a lot. She did a lot of matches. She traveled all up and down the East Coast, even the Southwest, or not West, but South and Southeast, and she RO'd a ton. Her ex would shoot, she would RO, and so on. So when we saw that one of the biggest problems and a continuing thing to work on was the RO situation, we volunteered to kind of move them from a paper range officer situation to a what do you call it, a steel competition, and so she did it a little bit different rather than the NRA style, which helped until we had one stage where the guy went off script. And that's where you only can go so far, and that's where the range officers, or not the range officer, but the match director has to be on his game. The match director has to have certain things in place, backups, people that can either supplement or replace if someone falls down for whatever reason. You know what I mean? And so um it's one of those cases where the experience helps, right? That's where experience comes into play. That's where you learn, through doing, like, this can happen. And hey, what's up? Checking in from Alaska. Nice. How Alaska? We got Alaska in the house. Love Alaska. It's early morning for you too, right? What is it? 8 o'clock there, maybe. Um, but yeah, so that was the only thing. It's just we need like a little bit more range officer work, which is easy, but we need like a quick reaction team. So if stage X bogs down, in in morning, Mike. And Mike, I got to talk to you big time, man. So you got to stay on and listen because we got good results that came up with the Craddock. But yeah. So you have to be able to insert your quick reaction force to minimize any downtime. You know, if you get behind 30 minutes, okay. But you got to look at for every if you have a 60 person individual match, for every minute one guy delays you, that's 60 minutes. You know what I mean? Because it screws you up. A minute cascades. So if you have a 30-minute delay, you need to kind of nip that at the bud immediately. But the terrain, the conditions, the mountain, that's the rock star. Hey James, hey, I heard about I wanted to reach out. We've been so busy. Lisa told me I'm sorry to hear what happened and that I'm gonna miss you next week. But I'm just gonna send James a note to just I get it, man. I had stuff with my mom and the same thing and it's terrible. But I'll throw you an offline message. But good morning. So anyway, yeah, you have to have that ability to be dynamic and to switch up, you know, because one guy going off script can mess with it a little bit. But I think it went really well. I think it's giving it good bones, and I like where it went. But Mike's on; he's on the hide, and Mike, we were doing um. We Mike's doing who's on the hide. He has videos up. Up, Chris is up. The end. What's up? Say something. Can you?
Made it.
All right,
Made
you're
it.
good. Make sure you're not echoing. I was just telling
Echo.
Yeah, I'm just telling stories and getting up because Apple. I was just telling everybody earlier. I did that video yesterday when you were teaching your class, and I filmed it like really good to do an easy edit video that I thought I could have knocked out before I jumped on just now. And Apple updated their program and changed it and totally fucked my game up. So I was like
Oh no.
venting. Yeah, so I was venting for like 10 minutes.
What
But
what program?
and Final Cut the video, they made it so I can't change the length longer. I only can make it shorter and I have to pull the clip out and then try to put it back in a certain way. It's making me be specific about the order I insert a clip. Otherwise, it overwrites my clip.
Oh,
So I'm
that's
editing it
not
to
good.
I'm editing it to a very specific point, even with my hand,
Mm-hmm.
like coming off the scope and going to like the gas gun. Like I'm coming off the scope and going to the bolt release, and it's changing it. And so I jumped on before I had my coffee and come up to go live, and I thought I can do like a quick 30-minute edit on the video, and it just put me back because I realized Final Cut changed how they manage the clips in the timeline, and I don't know how to put it back to where the original way. So now I have to go restart everything over and do the clips when I'm done here before the Happy Race Day race because today's a big race. Today can fuck everything up or push them into the playoffs. Like today's the day, and then next week Laura and I are in Phoenix to watch it live. I was gonna say you
Wow,
better
that's
be
gonna be
fucking kidding,
badass.
Andrew. I'm gonna ban Andrew. Andrew's getting banned. He's a distraction.
I hate you, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm gonna ban you. You're a distraction. Even as a ban button. There's even a ban button right here. But yeah. Anyway.
I'm just gonna change no to Andrew.
Yeah, no Andrew Fucktardo, right. But dude,
Ha! Just kidding. I love you.
right, totally. How did so since I didn't do a lot
Uh,
with your class and Chris sent me a note, there I'm gonna just gonna say this. There are far too many Chris's in this world that are in the shooting community around me because like I come home to try to talk to Laura And there's way too many Chris's to mention. And I have to now designate every single. Yes, it is a Boston Scully, Ted. I have to designate every single Chris by their last initial.
If they start dropping off, it wasn't us.
Yeah, I gotta whack them.
Chris's start vanishing. We just all need yeah, because W isn't going to work forever either. Um, because
No.
Chris R, Roberts and Reinhardt and
Rance,
uh,
Rance,
Rance.
Roberts, Reinhardt.
Yeah, yeah. You're running into trouble.
Yeah, I got a big problem.
Big
So
problem. And they're all big guys too.
they're all way bigger than me.
Chris Roberts, I haven't talked to him though, but like looks like he's lost a lot of
He
weight and
lost a
he's
ton of weight.
doing
He looks
stuff and
very good. He looks
yeah,
very
yeah.
slim and trim. He's the one who took the video for me at Major Land. So he was
Yeah.
around Major Land and he lost a lot of weight. He looks very good.
Yeah, imagine he's probably feeling, his body probably feels much better. Yeah.
So
I put on a bunch of weight and my body felt a little bit better just because I think it was feeling frail and hurting and I was actually surgery, but now I'm just getting the only thing I feel now is tight clothes. Um, all right, but I walk around the house naked and try to just make sure from here up I'm clothed.
oh, so you're like Winnie the Pooh, shirt
Oh
cocking it.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Most of the time, like I just strip off when I come through the front
I,
door.
Andrew, you can't do that. Andrew's fucking around about an echo, man. That's not like something to be fucking around about, to be dead honest. Like because sound is the one thing that people will mess with. And so if it doesn't sound right, it's something we have to adjust. So you being a
Yeah,
dickhead and fucking around about an echo is really doesn't help us because that's the shit that goes right to my brain and wants me to fix it. So
unless unless
yeah.
Echo is the name, like a nickname.
No, but he's just being an
But
ass, and it fucking doesn't work, dude. It's
okay,
like it's the one thing that if we can't hear, and it's not coming through us, but coming through you because our system's different than yours. I'm muting what you're listening to. It's fucking
yeah.
bullshit. People, I'm in a bad mood over my computer, and then you're gonna fuck with and make computer problems be a thing. So 3 posts you're gonna make about a computer problem? Come on, dude.
Okay, NASCAR. I like watching it when I'm at your house, and I
Mm-hmm.
like the first season of the Netflix one. And I know that the elimination, is like 8, 7, or it cuts people down to the final race. But the final race is in Phoenix.
Right.
So this is the one before the final race. So is it the final four in Phoenix?
Yes, there's
And
8 people right now fighting for the final 4. And as the points stand, 4 people are currently out. They don't have enough points to make it to Phoenix, but if one of those 4 wins, he's in. So even if you
ooh,
right, so even if you're the last guy in points, you could be 60 points below. Like I don't know where Logano is. Logano's last, I believe. If he wins today, he's in. And then he knocks the guys who are in below him out in a way. So Larson is the last guy on points. And the problem is Joe Gibbs Racing, all their guys are winning and in on points, but Larson, and I hate Joe Gibbs Racing. I like Chase Briscoe. I don't like Denny Hamlin, although Denny Hamlin's on a tear, and Denny Hamlin's probably going to win the championship. But Larson's our driver, and currently Larson is the last guy in on points. But if somebody wins around him, he's out.
but so he hasn't won
Not
to
to get
guarantee
into
it?
this. No, he hasn't won because each block of 3 races requires a new guarantee. So
Oh,
they do 3 races. If you win one of the 3, you guarantee the next level. Well, once you're at
hmm
the next level, it resets and then goes by
oh.
points unless you win.
So you basically have five guys just trying to win at all costs.
8 guys right now.
Well, but three are guaranteed in.
Right now, yes, there's 3 that are guaranteed right now. So there is 5. Yes, 5 are
So they're
fighting
not
for
going to,
one.
three aren't going to take unnecessary risks
Right. I
unless they're
think
trying to
only
block
2 are
somebody.
guaranteed though. I think only 2 have a win, and so 2 of them have a win, so 6 guys need a win.
So this is the race you don't want your car to fuck up at.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's the race, it's a short track. It's the race that Laura and I went to in the spring in Virginia. It's Martinsville.
I want to go to Indy 500 this year because I think that'd be fun. Um, Holy shit, that's gonna be fucking awesome. You're gonna have to like, I'm gonna be texting you while you're in
Morning,
Arizona.
Bobby.
Like, what's happening? What's happening? All you need is relevant periodized training. Oh my gosh. Okay. All
I
right.
couldn't
Yeah, we
tell
got
I
that's
couldn't
that
tell
diet thing.
I couldn't tell if
Yeah.
Kyle's trying to sell us something. I don't know if Kyle's a shooter or if he's a nutritionist sales guy because he's giving
Yeah.
sales pitch. 4 years and
Who can
33
bench?
years old, and it's like that. And, Kyle, are you selling us on nutrition? I got a
Yeah,
six
yeah.
pack and I'm almost 60.
The yeah, yeah. Take GPC, whatever.
I weigh the
Um,
exact same thing, and if you look at me from the neck down, I look exactly like the photographs of me in the Marine Corps when I was 23. Except my dick's bigger now.
well, it grows with age.
It does. It gets
Um,
longer. It hangs.
um,
Gravity pulls it
it's like,
downwards.
yeah, it's like ears, noses, and
Mm-hmm.
other body parts. All right, so the NASCAR, that's going to happen. I don't think I can get that on my cable, but
CW. Not CW. It's on NBC. So True TV. Anything.
I don't have any like subscription things.
What is that? Went to
Um,
Horizons. Good to
I
see you all
haven't
back on
used
YouTube. My went with
left bolt gun.
Horizons. Oh, nice. He got a lefty. He's a lefty. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit because Chris had a class on Friday and Saturday with a bunch of people. He was doing a Hunter Win class, but I came out both days to rearrange and to finalize the both my 6 arcs, the bolt gun and my gas gun. And
hmm
I was setting up the laser and making sure everything was together on the bolt gun and getting my Mars and Vision laser together. And I did that on Friday. And then I went to switch scopes a bit at on Friday with the Craddock, and it turned out I had a stripped screw on the Schmidt and Bender I was going to use. So then I came home and scrambled, and I ended up opting for um I ended up opting to put my Leopold Mark IV on. Weight was right, size and everything for the 6 arc. So having that Leopold Mark IV, I zeroed that guy up. Then I've settled on in the bolt gun. I'm gonna shoot the 108s. And then if I need to waste ammo or not really worry about it, I could do the 103s. They're just like 25 feet per second slower than the 108s, so the 108s make more sense. But then I set the Craddock up different, and I went and doped the 80s completely and looked at it. At the end of the day, in my 22-inch Bartland Craddock, the 80 grain VT Hornady factory has the same dope at 1,000 yards as my Terminus bolt gun with the 108 ELDMs. So the bolt gun shooting the 108s, 8.6 mils at 1,000 yards, and the Craddock is shooting the 80 grain at the 8.6 at 1,000 yards. Kyle, what are you talking about? I'm
I
gonna
think he's still
ban that
talking about
dude.
diets and stuff.
Yeah,
No, he's just
he
talking about
needs.
like whatever stuff. Yeah,
I have no idea. I
that's
don't know
cool.
what he said. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it says,
I
it's
w
coming off like a bot. He's coming off on me like a bot. He's giving me off bot vibes. But anyway, so that's where I ended up. So now, and Mike, this is what I was going to talk about with you. With that 22-inch Craddock and the 80 grain VT,
I'm gonna
it's
draw that while
now
you're talking.
paired. Um, uh, I don't know names. Sorry, man. Like I said, you were coming off like a bot. So Mike, bolt gun with a 24-inch barrel, the gas gun in precision zone to 22-inch barrel, they pair up at the same 1,000 yard. The only difference was in the wind. I needed 1.5 mils with the Craddock in the 80 grain, and I only needed 1 mil with the 108s in the bolt gun with the 108s. So there was a 0.5 mil difference in the wind at 1,000 yards. But I am so psyched that I can interchange gas gun and bolt gun. And honestly, that Craddock is just point hit, point hit, point hit. It was so good. Set it up, gravity
It shoots
ballistics.
fucking awesome, guys. I
Yeah.
shot that thing and was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Well, you did the
So
bolt gun to show you that recoil because I wanted you to see
yeah.
how I rebalanced in the recoil. But here's the numbers for the Craddock. They line up with like 6.5, almost so good, but I was like amazed. Here we had about a 8 to 12 mile an hour wind yesterday. It was
Hmm.
a 75% wind, give or take, and I
Hmm.
was holding 1 mil with the bolt gun, 1.5, and it was just hitting on command. I mean, it was other than the 80 grains hit so light and everybody was shooting around me. So on camera, you really have to listen if you want to hear the 80 grains hit. But everything was hitting. Every time I shot, it was hitting. And it was like so damn good. And they're paired up exactly like we thought they would do. It's the perfect pipeline for somebody that wants to go from a gas gun to a bolt gun, dabble in competition, and then if they want to grow into it and squeeze accuracy, they can hand load it without a lot of effort, without a lot of resources. Small
Hmm.
frame AR saves you money. And here we are with a 6 millimeter small frame AR. You're not spending alpha dasher brass money. You could buy a box of shit 105s and use the brass if
Hmm.
you were running low. You know what I mean? But it's
But with the gasser, you were killing prairie dogs at like 800 and 900 yards, like one shot, one prairie dog. So it's not like people could do a lot with it.
yeah. Oh, I was like, if I ranged the prairie dog, they were dead. I actually wasn't ranging them because I went and ranged like a couple of them, and every time I ranged them, I killed them. And so I was like, oh, I like playing with them and guessing. I like
Hmm.
trying to figure out how far that one is based on this one I just hit.
Hmm.
Yeah, small frame. The 6 arc is a small frame AR. It just has the 6.8 bolt face or head. It has the different bolt head. That's the only difference. It runs it's a PPU bolt head, and so I don't know the number, but anyway, I just know it's a 6 millimeter PPU bolt head for like my bolt gun. When I got it from uh
All right.
I honestly,
And
my Craddock is like Robert's asking about it uses a 6.8. Yes, it fits a 6.8, just like a Valkyrie, just like a Grendel. It uses a Grendel mag, so you just
wait,
put it
Chris
in like a
Roberts is on?
Grendel. No, Robert Gonzin from Chicago.
Oh,
But yeah, Robert, it fits in. This is small frame AR stuff. Um, yeah, and so it just fits in that. But my Craddock upper with a Bartland barrel is so accurate. It's bolt gun accurate. It really,
Yes.
really is. And because it's a small frame AR, you don't have the problems with an AR-10 in accuracy that people see. Very few people without training are capable of going from a small frame AR to a large frame AR-10 and accurately shooting without training and practice. The increased bolt size, the mass pushes things around really different. So the low recoil and the low mass movement of a small frame AR doesn't push people around the same. So they're able to get to a point quicker with a small frame AR than they are with a large AR-10. That's why people double tap with AR-10s. Pop, 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 pop. Because the AR-10 mass is pushing the trigger into their finger. And so moving this small frame cartridge into a bolt gun, it's almost pre-tuned for success. Yeah,
Mhm.
same as the 22 arc and the 6 arc and all that. They're all the same. There you go, James. Thank you. I'm not the AR guy like that, but and I don't know everyone. 22 arc, 6 arc, and Grendel are all the same bolt face, but it is different than 5.56. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I just know they're different. I can't memorize those numbers, or I'll forget ballistic numbers at this point in my lifespan. So if I remember bolt faces all over, this is 473, this is this 9, fuck it, I don't care. So I let them tell me. But anyway, that Craddock, like I said, it's and it gives you that ability we talk about all the time. This is where we come out of rifles only with James being on there. It's about being a well-rounded marksman. We never wanted you to be a one-trick pony. And today, a lot of that stuff pushes people into being this one-trick pony. And so if we can standardize, and I don't mean that. That's a bad word, but if we can give you a system that is my gas gun's a 6 arc. Even if you did the 22 arc for a door kicker, a 6 arc for a DMR rifle, and then a bolt gun in a 6 arc, you're still doing something correctly. Now, granted, you always can say 22 arc door kick, 6 arc DMR, and then I'm going to do like a 300 Norma or something big for the bolt gun to give me range beyond the 6 arc. You know what I mean? You can kind of create a structure, like for me, a PRC, right? I would do 6 arc or 22 arc door kicker, 6 arc DMR, and then 6.5 PRC. Then I can do so much and go a little ELR with the PRC if I put like an A tip on it. Or if I shoot like a slow 143, it doesn't push me around so bad. I could still do hunter comps and things with the PRC. And I shot the Cameo hunter comp with a PRC and it didn't beat me up. So you can create this, you know, simplification for people. And it's not you need this, you need this, you need this, you need that. It kind of gives you a better it's when everybody wanted a 308. It was 5.56 and a 308. Now there's so much variety, nobody knows what to do. So if you say I'm going to do a 6 arc and work my way until I need bigger, you can do that. You're just going to burn a AR out in 6 arc if you treat it like a door kicker because it's going to nuke it.
I'm making my art for the week, for not for the week, but for
Oh,
last
because yeah,
week's
you talked
conversation.
to we did or Chris talked to Hornaday about the bullets. So we had
Yeah,
a
I just want to
question
get some
on
colors.
Wednesday with the 100 grain 6.5 Creedmoor why the VT had a full point higher BC than the 100 grain ELDM. So Hornady sells a 100 grain ELDM, a match, and then they sell a 100 grain E or VT, which is a varmint. But if you look at the BC, the VT is a 0.4 and the match is a 0.3. And you're like, well, why does the match have such a small or, lower BC than the varmint? Well, Chris inquired with Hornaday and they came back with an answer for us. And so that's where he's
Hmm.
drawing a picture to show us. But
Yeah, I'm trying to get the right colors.
I mean, it really is about bringing people like, everybody had that grow the sport line. That was just that, a line. They weren't doing anything to grow the sport because everything they were doing was so expensive, required you to have somebody hold you by the hand and walk you in the door. So, while they grew the sport because a certain amount of people in areas didn't want to be left out, they really never gave you a model or a pipeline to help you grow the sport. It was sort of on your own to make enough friends to have it so you could you can create something in your area big enough to sustain. Cuz nobody's really traveling anymore. You're not getting people flying to a match unless they have to. Most of them want to be within 4 hours, and that's really what grew things, is that want to not have to travel. And so
Hmm.
you'll notice in areas where people don't have to travel, it's more popular. Where people have to travel, you have to go farther between where you can find events. But if you can advertise, if you can create this pipeline,
Hmm.
right? And yeah, exactly. The RPR was a pipeline. That's why I helped them with that. Ruger came to me. Rob's talking the RPR. I prototyped and helped them with the RPR before it was even a picture on a piece of paper. The guy who did it was young. It was his first project at Ruger. He came up to me and he asked, would I NDA and would I help them with the RPR? And the whole point of the RPR was a low cost bolt gun that could be modified like a AR to help people grow into the sport, right? And that's why my early videos, I ripped one, and I have like 4 of them, and I ripped them apart and rebuilt them with aftermarket parts. Why? Like within 6 months, I was doing videos of rebuilding a Ruger precision rifle with aftermarket parts. Why? That was by design. And people online were like, this rifle's brand new and you're ripping it apart. And I'm like, yes, because I can. And that was the point of the Ruger, to make it like an AR. And that's where we are now, like my Terminus, and I moved it around. The Valkyrie's dead. Dude, I don't make those rules. And that's what somebody's asking, what up with the Valkyrie? I embrace the Valkyrie. I like 22. I'm like,
Hmm.
you got a 22 that's going to reach 1,000 yards in low recoil, high round count. I got 6,000 rounds out of my Valkyrie bolt gun. Plus, I signed up. And because of the 90 grain problem, because of that initial hiccup in the gas guns, in that hyper focus on the gas gun and it fell down, they killed the Valkyrie. It was dead. Well, before they put the first nail in the coffin of the Valkyrie, and this is true story. I went through others. Chris Roberts was one of them, and reached out to Federal. Federal, we have a pipeline and a model for the Valkyrie. Do you want us to like hype it and talk about Valkyrie 2.0? Because they did it. They changed from the 90 grain to the 80 grain, and the 80 grain Valkyrie works great. Federal 80 grain Valkyrie, amazing ammo. The Federal 90 grain Valkyrie didn't work. So that killed the Valkyrie. But when they came back with that 80 grain, I wanted them to do a marketing program around it. Like, hey, let's talk about this, and let's put a band-aid on that 90 grain scar. You know, little vitamin E, little rub into it. We don't want that scar to show. Let's cover it up. Nope. And the Valkyrie died because then they jumped into the arcs. 6 arc, 22 arc. Look at the numbers of a 22 arc. Matches a Valkyrie. Just close your eyes and cover where it says 22 arc and just read the numbers. It's Valkyrie numbers. But
Mm-hmm.
they killed Valkyrie. So I can't, in good conscience, as much as I like shooting my Valkyrie, promote it. So I went around. I talked to people. We had the army guys with Nick came up. Hey, what's the word on the street with the arc? They like it. What's this happening? We're good with it. So I felt the arc world 22, 6, 338 were here to stay. So now, new year, I spent a year playing with it. New year 2026 is coming up. I'm going 6 arc. And these are all the reasons why. But then looking at it, like talking to Mike on there, and Mike did the stuff on the High TV. You can look at his videos, right? Medico there. We saw some things that because they really, when Valkyrie came out, it was the 90 or the 75. Now there's like 5 or 6 different Valkyrie loads, but they're all very light. But it was the 90 or the 75. And the 75 after 500 yards didn't work. It was great inside 500, terrible outside. And then the 90 didn't work in the wind, and it was wrong. The 2750 handicapped it. If they made that 2850, I bet it would have worked. But they screwed it up. So anyway, it's like like now the Creedmoor, 22 Creedmoor, speed. They downloaded this ammo and handicapped it. So you can't promote it. You got pictures?
Yeah,
You could
yeah, but
talk.
I'm
I could
listening
stop.
too. Like I like I love the Valkyrie, and I still have a upper, and I thought it was awesome. You know, it's a bummer when something that's good gets taken off because of economic or marketing or a glitch in a product or you know, um, and then it can't survive
Yeah.
the
It's a
time
6.5
between.
Grendel. There's a ton of 6.5 Grendel fans out there. 6.5 Grendel does not work as advertised. A 6.5 Grendel should have been at a maximum a 6 Grendel. At the best, a 22 Grendel. If they made a 22 Grendel, it would have ran away with it. If they made a 6 millimeter Grendel, they would have ran away with it. But because they did a 6.5 Grendel, it never worked as advertised because they talked about it past 800 yards too much. And it wasn't set up for that, you know? And so that's
Mhm.
what happened with the Grendel. Now, does that mean you can't take Grendel brass and do a lot of really cool stuff if you're a hand loader? Yeah. but the pipeline has to be factory based, right? There's a lot of
Hmm.
wild cards out there. I mean, 22 Creedmoor was a wild card. 25 Creedmoor was a wild card. Now they're factory based. Anything factory based creates a path for somebody, not us. And the whole point is to grow a community, to bring in more people, not you, who are interested, who then can grow forward. And if you don't have a easy path for them to take, if you're making them climb Everest to get there, they're not going to do it. But if you say, hey, here's a nice little, mound that you're going to walk up the top and you're going to see everything around you because it's all flat, they'll climb the mound.
Hmm. Yeah, man, that stuff's that's so difficult though because it's not really growing the community. It's getting people to grow your brand, which is actually it kind of converges a lot of things that we've addressed today a little bit in a conversation with a guy who might be listening because he talks a lot about our podcast and stuff, and then other things. But man, I'm going to offend a lot of people if I start talking about it. So let's talk about the VT bullet
Yeah, yeah.
because
Well, let's go
like the
and
Ruger stuff, I'm just bitter because like Ruger's, I won that contract, and then the O'Shaughnessy and the Prime people
fucked you
kicked me
over.
out after they got a contract. So fuck Ruger and fuck those guys.
Yeah.
Even though the guns are probably fine, I just, man, why bother with fucking shit
Well,
bags? So,
and I don't talk
um,
with Ruger. I like they called me. Ruger called me after the whole RPR started in the thing, and they said
yeah,
I
they
was
work
the
good.
single right. I was the single biggest driving force for the original success of the RPR, and then they stopped talking to me.
Yeah, I mean, but then they hook up with a guy like Epstein, and then they wonder, like,
Right.
okay,
Right.
eventually this isn't going to go well. So I'm just staying the hell away because they're hooked up with
Yeah.
Epstein.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. These things hurt. Yeah, totally Epstein.
so, all right, I had a email conversation with Jaden. He's the ballistician at Hornady, and he sent me a figure, and I tried to replicate the figure, showing the difference between the ELD and the VT. But so this is my artistic representation of the image that was sent to me. Hopefully, you can see that the ELD. So the I'm not a ballistician, and I usually don't give a shit about the shape of a bullet or how far off the lands a load is. But there's a part, up here called the ogive, and I'm just going to draw a random, not accurate horizontal line where the curve gets, it goes towards the actual caliber diameter. But you can see with the ELD, it's wider closer to the front of the bullet than the VT, which is wider closer to the rear. And so they made the bullet longer and narrower in the VT before it gets to the caliber diameter versus the ELD. And if I think that the conversations about drag make sense if you think about a car or something that or if you're swimming through water. The ELD, you can see there, it's gonna slice through whatever with a little more resistance because it's not sleek. Also, the VT, it looks like those caps are different. The ELD looks like a little plug in the front, and the VT looks like a longer plug, but I can't tell from the image whether this is just space. But the VT is also a varmint hunting bullet. So if this hits something, you would have a cavity opening up and spreading, right? Allowing rapid expansion. But what it looks like to me is that the mass of the bullet is essentially, a little forward
Hmm.
of halfway to the rear, whereas the ELD is a little bit more uniform throughout the body of the bullet. But whatever this does, it allows it to go a hell of a lot faster and have less drag. So the BC on the VT is much higher. But not only do you get a higher BC, but you get a higher velocity. And so these two bullets are going at much different speeds. And the VT isn't slowing down as fast. So it's going to continue at a higher speed, even though it's the same weight, um, for longer, which is why Frank was able to shoot at 80 grain out of a gas gun and match the ELD's drop at 1,000 for a heavier bullet. Um, because those data points converge around there. You know, 100 yard zero and 1,000 yard drop. The data was the same for the two guns at 1,000 and 100,
And they're the
which
same at
means
6, I believe. Let me check my 6. Yeah, they're the same at 6, Chris. Let me see where they can. They're identical. Honestly, all the way out, they're identical. If you run the same numbers, they're the same. So our 6 is the same and our 1,000's the same.
yeah, I mean, I think that's really it's interesting, like intellectually, but functionally, one thing that came up in the class was, and it comes up a lot, we could sit around and we could talk theory and we could talk about ballistics and we could hold up a kestrel and we can do mathematical formulas. But when we go shooting, most of us don't do that. We go shoot. We want to know, what do I have to dial to hit that target? And do you really care about the equations for gas and heat and temperature and pressure? And probably not, because you want to dial in elevation, no wind, and hit a target. So when I think about the functionality of an arc bolt gun with a 108 and an arc gas gun with 80s, I'm going to think more about what am I going to do with it and which one's going to give me the performance that I need. And if they're equal performance, gas gun wins because it's lighter and faster. If all things equal, if I could shoot the same group size, a gun that I can move around faster, not have to run a bolt, so I don't have to really break as much to reset my NPA, the gas gun wins. And that's part of the argument that I had about when gas guns catch up to bolt guns, they're going to dominate because they have an advantage over bolt guns functionally, but ballistically they haven't until now when these new bullets, now we're talking about a really good competitive advantage to being able to break shots. And the only thing you have to do is reset the trigger before you take another shot. The gas gun's going to win.
James, are you with your 22 Creedmoor? Are you a bolt gun or gas gun? Because you're saying you got a 24-inch and it says 3550 and you're 3547. So you're doing a 69 grain at 3500, which is screaming. Is that a bolt gun or gas gun? But go ahead, Chris. I'll wait till the answers and stuff. But yeah,
Yeah, so I think that like we're really close to that convergence where if somebody can shoot a gun, a gas gun, like they can shoot a bolt gun, and
got
like
it.
what Frank said, so,
Thanks.
some people struggle shooting gas guns like they shoot bolt guns, and that needs to be picked apart individually because it's not a blanket statement. I could shoot my gas gun like my bolt gun, but those two things equivalent, the gas gun's always going to win because there's just less to do. The disadvantage of a gas gun, especially if it's suppressed, is that it's going to gunk up. And in the field, dust is going to get in there and you're going to have to maintain it before it stops cycling right. And I've got really good gas guns. And if I run a suppressor, by the end of the day, I'm struggling to have things go into battery all the time. And so I might have to run, uh, cycle a round
Well,
out
and
to
that's where
get
I
it to
think
go into battery.
the small frame works better than the large frame. We're way
Mhm.
less powder, way less gunk, and we know a small frame will run gunked up a little bit better than a large frame will. An
Hmm.
AR-10, like you're saying, it's dumping, twice as much powder almost, of a half, 50% more powder. And so that's where the gunk comes from. And you can kind of zip a small frame cartridge a little bit longer than a large frame.
Yeah. So I had cleaned the SP10 before I came out on Friday and I shot that. But by the end of the day, if it had been sitting there with the bolt back and I put in a magazine, dropped the carrier, it wouldn't always go into battery. So all I had to do is cycle it and it would go into battery. But and I run them dry. I don't lube them up like crazy. And if I do put anything on there, I spray one shot and let it air out first because any kind of grease or oil in our environment, it just turns it into like toothpaste and slows everything down. But if you're there and you can't go clean it, then I started to put oil on it and it was cycling good. But by the time I got home, it had basically turned to just
Yeah.
tubes of concrete, which didn't work right. But the small frame ones, you're right, they work better and more reliably. But if you know that, you could stay ahead of it probably. If you could
Mm-hmm.
blow it out with something, if you took a little can of something and just blew out the shit, and you could probably keep it running. Um, but yeah, they're very good, and it makes sense with the VT being sleeker and having the. I don't know why the weight to the rear changes anything, and it's going forward. And but I'm not a ballistician. I'm somebody who likes to think numbers and think theory, but then do it and then talk about the action itself. I don't really
Right. Well, this
like.
is or our questions
Yeah.
were the other day, like with the 120s and how they capped them at 2850. And then it even lends to the 25 Creedmoor with their being a little longer, sleeker. You would think with a 6.5 Creedmoor and what you just showed that they can change the super light bullet and have it versus a match, that
Mhm.
there would be a 6.5 Creedmoor that was in the 130 to 135 zone that would almost match the 25 Creedmoor BC. But when you
Yeah.
do,
Well, I'm
like,
excited to shoot the 25 this year at hunter matches
yeah.
and try to get the bullets optimized for that because
Mm-hmm.
you can get them going fast.
Well, and I have another case out there. We have to do the 25 Creedmoor and fix the video because I never put it out because it's a mess. But there's also now a case of 128 ELDX out at the range. So we have the ELDM 134 grain for the 25 Creedmoor, and we have the ELDX 128 grain. So we can compare the two bullet weights in the 25 as well.
So I had another. This might relate. At least in my head, it seems to make sense. The group that was out, they weren't competitors, but they hunted, but they'd never taken a look at the difference between competition and hunting, and then trying to wrap their heads around gravity ballistics and craft wind for their purpose. It it's hard for people to separate like all the things that they've read and heard, and rather than just pick each point and go, oh, but I heard this, like back up and say, okay, how am I going to actually use this? And they had the little handheld rangers,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them didn't have binoculars or rangers at all. And some of them didn't have tripods, and some of them, and they were like, how are we going to do this and actually be effective? Because I was a stickler for like, you guys got to go faster. And I kind of drew a range because if this is going to be hard to see till I um, explain it, but if you look out on a flat range,
Come,
it,
yeah,
it's
just a
rolly
little.
it's
There you go.
rolly hills, right? So from where you are, we might be able to see flat ground at 300, but then it dips away and it picks back up at 500. So if we're ranging something on this little crest, we're going to get 300, 500, 300, 500, 300, 500, and then we got 500 to 600, and then we might get 800, 900, 800, 900. Well, what's cool about gravity ballistics is that you might say from 300, a lot of these guys' rifles were point .9 to 0. And then 5 to 600, it's probably a mil, whatever it is, right? It's probably 1 mil from difference from here to here. And then from 8 to 900 is probably, 1.1 mils from here to here. So now they've basically got three 1 mil range cards because they know that the top of this crest is going to be a mil more than something poking its head out. And up here, it's going to be a mil to a mil. And then this is zero point 0.9. So basically a mil. Now, if a coyote walks out, do they really need to range it? Well, they've got a mil variance in here that they could play with. And they know this is going to be the top end and this is going to be the bottom end. And they can kind of quickly know those three
Yeah.
boxes. And with craft wind, the percentage is going to be the same across all these. And those are only three values they need to know with a little work in advance. And that's just gravity ballistics and craft wind combined. And then looking at a range and saying, realistically, anything on this little band is going to be a mil. And anything on that band is going to be 3 mils.
Right.
And anything on that band is going to be 5 mils. And you don't have to have a calculator and a
That's how
dope
I do
card. And
prairie dogs. When I'm shooting the
Mhm.
prairie dogs without ranging them, I'm doing exactly that. I'm just using the 600 to 800 band where the dogs are. And then
Mhm.
I'm using my gravity ballistics to add or subtract based on where that prairie dog pops up. And I'm range estimating him and not ranging him. So when you see me doing the prairie dogs, I'm doing exactly that with gravity ballistics. I'm just in a 200-yard block for the prairie dogs because that's where their town is. So
Right.
I'm
And if a
range.
prairie dog in here is like 4/10 tall, 4/10 is a
Yeah,
decent vertical if they're standing. I mean, the wind call has to be shit hot, but if you're talking about at that range, they're about 4/10 tall and 2/10 or less wide. You can do that if you
yeah.
know the bands, right?
And I know the
And
band, right?
so yeah, so talk about that because I thought at the end of Saturday
And
when they
so
started asking questions, they're like, "Well, how do we do this practically? Because we don't have all the stuff, and it seems like that would take time." And I thought, You don't have to,
right, and I'll do the first so I know where I start my band because there's targets out there. Now the targets are spread wide, but there is, like Chris is saying, a band of ground I look at. I absolutely am looking at the band and I have my reference points where I know where 600 starts. I know roughly where 7, although I will say when I kind of look at 7, I'm generally in the 720 to 730 zone because that's where the town is or the holes are. So my 7 becomes 730 because holes are there. And then it goes to like 840 to the next block of holes. And so I go, okay, that hole looks at 630 to me, and or the dog is out there at 630. So I say my 600 dope is 3.6 or 3.5. I'm gonna add 3/10 of gravity ballistics to that. Then I'm gonna shoot in on that dog. Well, I'm watching where I impact, and I usually throw dirt on them, and it's normally a nudge head, head or tail. I'm normally nudging the 4/10 Chris is talking about, but I'm measuring it at that point in the reticle because I'm often close enough the ground isn't distorting my reticle fix, if that makes sense. So I'm range estimating to a distance. I'm using gravity ballistics to dial it. And then based on my reference points that I have predetermined. And then once I fire that first shot, my correction is normally based off the mills that I see it impact.
hmm
So that's generally how you see me shooting prairie dogs when I'm not ranging them. Because when I range them, I hit them.
right?
It's if I range him, it's like he's gone, and it's like that's no fun. I like throwing dirt. I like fucking around, or I like using my brain to guess. You know?
Right, right. And then it brought up the one of the
Frankie
nutsack
Carbone.
stages. One of the stages I had at the nutsack the last time I had it. And some people get it and some people don't. I'm going to cut this in half um, because the bullets aren't going to work. But what Frank just alluded to, and that you guys could probably understand, but some of you might have missed, is that if he thinks it's 720 and it's a tenth per 10 yards, and he shoots and he's off by 2/10, he knows he's 20 yards off with his range. He obviously that doesn't matter as much as just making the adjustment. But Frank understands the ballistics, and in that zone is probably a tenth per 10 yards. So if he shoots, and I say, oh, it's 700, he shoots, he needs to add 2/10. He goes, it's actually 720. If I dial 720, I'll hit it. So I before COVID, I ran a 1 day match called the Nutsack, and it was um, really bizarre stages to make you think about your shooting in different ways. And so I had Austin cut me odd shaped targets, and we have some out at the range, but there was a couple that were big. Like this was like 3 mils, right? And I said, okay, you get 60 seconds, unlimited rounds. Tell me how far away it is. But the only thing you could do is shoot to see how comfortable people were with their data. And they would shoot, and whatever they hit it with, that's what they would tell me the range was. But it's 3 mils, right? And with most of our rifles, that's 300-yard variance. And so I gave points. I deducted every 10 yards a point from 10, and almost nobody got points because wherever they hit it, that's what they told me the range was, rather than where they aimed, what was the deviation from where they aimed? Because that's the information that's valuable. If I aim here and I hit here and I measure it and do the math, I could tell you how far away it is. If I aim here and hit here and I tell you whatever I dialed because I hit the target is the appropriate range, that's not true, right? Yes, you can hit a target with bad data, but I'm asking people to tell me how far away it is so that they understand wherever they put, if they put their reticle at the very top and they hit the very top, they got the range right. If they put the reticle at the very top and hit the bottom and tell me that, they got the range wrong. So it's in reference to where your actual point of aim is. So you have to
Right.
see where you're aiming and you have to see where the bullet goes. Those two things give you the answers that you need, not simply I hit the target. But a
Well,
lot of
and that
people just
was
run off hit the target.
that was the beauty with when I'm running the Burris PS scope and I was shooting the prairie dogs with the Burris PS scope. I had
Hmm.
the PS scope where it just read the yards in the HUD. And then I was looking at stuff and going, oh, that prairie dog's 25 yards more. And I was dialing 25 yards in the scope and not looking at dope. I was using the distance. And I found shooting prairie dogs with the Burris in yards was easier than even trying to do it in mills because the yards were easy for me to kind of play around because there are T-posts and things out there, and I can range estimate, oh, that looks 20 yards, that looks 10 yards. And I was killing a bunch of the prairie dogs a little bit easier with the yard line, although the gravity ballistics I translate, and what I find, what I think it is, because I'm doing 10 yards to 10 mils, it's like I'm kind of rounded a little bit where with the yard line I can do 2 or 3 yards and I was doing 5 mils. So I would do, oh, that's 25 yards and not 30. You know what I mean? So in the mills I was dialing 30 and not 25. And then I would hold the 5 yard difference when I cleaned over the prairie dog's head. And then I go
Right.
up, I went over him, and then I'd hold low at his bottom, and then I'd hit him that half a tenth. But with the yard line, I was dialing weird yard lines because it looked
Oh
like
yeah.
it. You know what I mean? So that was the only difference, but it's the same method. I was just doing feet instead of yards with it in when it was in the yard line, I could do feet in a way. But when it's in mills, I have to do the 10-yard increments. And so I go, okay, that's 25 yards, which, it's half.
Yeah. But, knowing that from doing it and finding a way that your brain is able to
Mm-hmm.
do it better, that's something that the individual has to do and say, gosh, this works better for me. Because same thing with craft win. I think in quarters, some people think in thirds. If it's two thirds,
Zeiss S3.
yeah, if it's two thirds, do you go with 75% or half? And normally I tell the guys, it's not going to make a bit of difference. Just shoot. And everybody at first goes, what? Like, if it calculates out to 6.6666, and I say, well, I think in quarters, so I'm going to do half or quarter or three quarters, and it's literally going to make no difference. They stop, like, and a guy pulled out his calculator and starts calculating. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
in the 5 minutes that you're going to mess on your phone, the wind's going to change. Why
Right.
don't you just shoot and see what the difference is? And there's no difference. And and but you develop the trust by doing it and hitting and doing it and hitting. So you can learn something, but the only way you're going to get trust is validating it with a bullet. So if you can validate it every time and like, shit, it's working, you develop trust. And then it doesn't matter if 0.75 is closer to 0.66 than zero point 0.5, because either way, if you made a decision quick, you're going to get it on plate. Then you see what happens, and then you carry that. That's real trust. And then I think that's real skill with the marksmanship. And it's not getting faster at typing into a calculator something that you've stopped
Right.
thinking
Right.
about.
Right.
And I think the key there is that going out and validating it, not with 100 rounds, but each round you do, it
Yes.
validates and it hits, and you go, this works better for me. I'm going to think in 25s instead of 30s, or and I'm going to think in degrees, or when Mark said, I'm going to hold up my fingers like this, and I'm like, well, that seems like a good idea. Let's try it. And then if it works, it's like, okay, cool. I like that. But if we can't go out and see it, I don't want somebody saying, well, you think you're doing it right, but you're not. And it's like,
Well,
but I keep hitting the target, but you think you're doing it right, but you're not. And let me show you the formulas. And it's like, if I keep hitting the target, I don't care what your formulas say.
Well, and that's a trust in equipment that I noticed, and why I was being such a friggin' pain with the Mars unit on Friday. So at Major Land, I would say as high as almost 50% of people with scope mounted lasers were 35 yards past the actual target on my stage at 1385. So if you took a handheld laser and ranged my target on the stage, it was 1385. If you corrected it for the angle, it was 1372. A lot of the or the lasers that were mounted on scopes were getting 1415.
Mm.
And when I was with my Mars, I was struggling with like the 600-yard target that I was working on because I was away from you guys. I was off in that south corner, and I was doing the line where the 800 is broke that goes to 1,000, and that 600 plate right there. I was getting 623 with the laser. So I was trying to fine tune my laser in to get the 600 yards that it was, and it kept reading 623. And then when I would do other targets, I was about that 20 yards more. That was weird. Oh, that was you.
Oh,
Um.
I was gonna share the Facebook post, but
Oh.
the
Oh.
sound came on from
Yeah. Yeah.
Laura's
Yeah.
post.
I was wondering. I thought my mic got weird, but so I noticed there's kind of it's that parallel zero. If the like their parallel zeros were off enough that it increased the range at farther distances and thus giving you 2/10 more bad dope. So I was working with my Mars unit to make sure that the Mars matched the handheld range. You know what I'm saying? Because I
Hmm.
saw that with it. Oh, God. You know what? I'll be generous and say it was only 40%, but it was huge. The amount of people that were 30 yards over because their scope mounted laser wasn't getting it right.
And so here's like the funny part, right? You spend a lot of time watching people and writing down stuff, and somebody's gonna say, I'm just gonna I forgot what the numbers were. I'm gonna write 1380 and 13.
And
Oh, you were
1410
1385. Okay, and
and
then 1410
1415 or
and
1415. Yeah.
1370 or something like that. And you're noticing, okay, so you have handheld binos and you have weapon mounted lasers. It's easy to fixate on the thing, but if you went and tested it, oh, I'm going to ask everybody that's watching. If you had a rifle and it's 1385 and you have handheld binos and you have a weapons mounted laser and they give you 15 yards difference, no matter what, you're going to dial a single value and hit the target, right? So I don't know how to verbalize that. If this target is here and you hit a water line, that bullet's always going to hit that water line when you dial the elevation on your rifle, regardless of what either laser gave you.
Right.
So now you're going to take your ballistic calculator and you're going to have to enter a number and a speed. And what if neither matches the water line? What do you do?
Right.
Well, when you shoot this distance, you better fucking dial the thing that hit the water line, right? So you need data for your laser, your rifle, and you need data for your binos. But if you start tweaking your BC and your velocity and running off one or the other, you're going down a rabbit hole you don't need to, because you know when you shoot that target, you dial this number and you're going to hit the freaking water line. So going out and testing it and then thinking, like, yeah, you can't necessarily do it at a competition, but you could do it in advance. When that target there, when I dial this, I hit it at the water line. That's reality. No, you don't
Right. But
split the difference. You know, I mean, it's physically
the thing is,
um
it's that it's like the unquestioning of the laser. So
yeah.
they don't even know their laser's wrong. And with 40% of the competitors having infinite trust on what their equipment tells them, and I'm sitting back there going, that guy's 30 yards off on a 1,400-yard target.
Hmm. And that's not, I mean, that's pretty far. So
Right.
like 3/10 is, normally that'll be, if they're aiming at the center of a target, they'll probably go under it or over it. But that's the thing, like, but reality, it's physically a fixed distance from you, and the
Mm-hmm.
bullet, if it's reliable, is gonna hit it if you dial the correct elevation, and it's
Yeah.
always gonna do that. So your devices need to be tested,
To make sure
but
it matches the hit and not just the number.
right. And if you tweak your ballistic calculator that does all the thinking for you on one of those lasers, you might be changing reality to match here, and then it's going to be off everywhere else.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people, because, like, there's a certain element at Major Land that comes from the military. More than 30% are active duty who's its. they're all different SF groups from the trickiest to Rangers. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
even there was snipers, active duty snipers from Big Army at Fort Drum. So a guy who came from Fort Drum Mountain Unit to guys that were with alphabets, all
Hmm.
shooting the same match. And so it's that reliability on their equipment. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
They don't question it, but then I'm seeing these variations, and then they all question. Dude, somebody like an SF team got mad at me because they missed their target, and when the clock ended, they were like, "Why did we miss?" And I said to the guy, "You gave him a backwards call. He went dyslexic and he went the wrong way. They shot with like they shot with point 0.4 and he gave him like a point 0.6 and it was supposed to be an increase of point 0.8. He gave him a smaller number when the wind was higher.
Hmm.
And I saw it and I'm watching. And so when it was over, I said, "You told him point 0.6 instead of point 0.8 and you went the wrong way." And they got mad that I said to them, like I gave them what they did, and they didn't. Like they're like, no, we didn't. I'm like, dude, I'm sitting here watching you. You guys were on the clock in the moment. You gave them the wrong direction in the wrong amount, and and
Yeah.
and they were offended by it because you can't question a certain amount of process. And part of that process is pushing the button on a laser and just assuming what you hit and where it was pointed was right. And that's where that 30 yards to me made a huge difference for people at that distance. And it was the parallel zero. So when I noticed 40% in my head had a parallel zero error, I worked on my laser to make sure I understood out further. And I didn't just assume, my in close laser adjustment was right. I then went to plates. And when it hit the plate, and it said 623. A lot of it was 523. I was getting 523 on that 600-yard plate right from the beginning. I had to
Hmm.
adjust it to get it to 600. But when I first went from the Connex box in the shadow for the laser, adjusted it
Hmm.
to its point, and then turned around and went to distance, it told me that 600-yard plate was 523. And then that's when I started adjusting with my parallel adjustment and making sure it worked out further and kept pushing it as far as I could to still get the target within an acceptable yard line that my dope wouldn't be more than a tenth off.
That makes sense though, but that's also the due diligence that you're going to need because you depend on testing and then seeing the results
Yeah,
versus just this is what we were told to do. We're doing that. How dare you say we miss?
right.
You
And,
know,
and but I mean, like I said, just seeing that 30 yards consistently put a bug in my head that said, check that.
right, right. But you also have that add-on in your brain of we need to check things that don't seem right
Right.
versus don't question shit. Just like like the question answer is what we do every day. Like
Mm-hmm.
something doesn't feel right. Let's figure this detail out because it seems weird. Be like, oh, it's just 30 yards. No, anything that doesn't feel right, but you see it enough, and then your intuition goes up because you have to be
Right.
really familiar with things for intuition to mean anything. But you're around guns a lot. You've shot a lot. Your intuition is really good. Like fuck, something's weird here, and we might not be able to. I mean, I could think of hundreds of times probably at the range where you're like, dude, there's something, and it's like neither of us can identify it or label it or describe it. And I'm like, man, if Frank's thinks there's something. So we start messing, we start messing, we start messing, and then all of a sudden it becomes clear what it is that just felt weird, and then we're like, oh shit, and then it turns into, a couple days of like, oh my gosh, this is
Right,
amazing.
right.
But that intuition, you need to get out and see it and test it, not just listen to somebody like, I was told this in my class and I'm going to always do that and not question anything, and if it's wrong it's shoot or error, and it's like, well, that that's an okay default, except at some point there are going to be weird things you're going to have to test, and then it's not just, oh, I fucked it up, because that's like blowing it off like it doesn't matter, like, ah, well, I messed it up.
Well,
How are you going to get
and then
better if you just say I messed it up?
right, and to go back where I lost my train of talking because I talk too much sometimes. A lot of people, so the guys at Major Land, what I was talking about, the tier one people, the mindset is when you show up to the match, you're ready to go. And they
Hmm.
don't have a mechanism for if something goes wrong to help you fix it on the fly. There isn't an active 100-yard board that you can run over to and check. And I really do believe there should be a stage area that if in a match, I'm coming around to the point where you're bringing people into a competition. You should be doing things to set them up for success that's open to everyone, and there should be a bay to damage control a problem, to check a problem when you arrive. And so because people staggered in, because they're coming from all over the country, there wasn't an opportunity after a point for them to check zero. And
Hmm.
like the Korean team, their ammo came late. And I said to the match director, these guys just got their ammo. I need them to bring in check zero. And he was like, fuck no, that's over. Tell them to put the offset in the Kestrel. And I was like, what? And he goes, I do it with my men all the time in the field, in SEAL sniper school, they do the Kestrel offset on the fly. And I'm like, yeah, they're not shooting minute a man at 400, dude. This is a comp. And I ran them down the hill to Dan's house, took them in the woods, and I gave them their 100-yard zeros at 6 o'clock at night. And then, they happened to win the cold bore shot because I gave them that opportunity. But the mindset was put it in the Kestrel and put your offset. And so throughout the match, I was getting a lot of people who knew me who were claiming all their data, all their zeros, all their stuff was off.
Hmm.
And what I really feel, it was their lasers that were off, giving them bad dope, which they relied on their lasers to say, that's the number, because my laser told me when I missed it, I was wrong or my zero was wrong or something was wrong, not the laser. So guys were coming up to me on Saturday, I'm not hitting nothing. My stuff's off. I need to recheck my zero. And it was like, he doesn't have a board. And so
Hmm.
that to me was the problem with those lasers being 30 yards off. It gave them the impression their zeros were off and that their dope was wrong altogether because everything they dialed was always 3/10 off, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, but yeah, that could be so many things, but they could figure out what those things are, right? Because if they confirm their data on a different laser and the lasers are different, well, then no shit. And then if it's an angle issue with the laser, figuring out what the angle compensation factor would be, or if it's a parallel
Right.
zero issue at distance where the parallax up close isn't enough until you get far away where now you've deviated from
Exactly.
it. Um, but those solutions have to be then individual. But then, when if you come ready to operate for those guys, that just shows they're not preparing right. I
Well, and
mean,
that's
in
kind of where I'm
reality, but
going to is that ready to operate isn't being met. And you see that with your classes.
Hmm.
How many times did you attempt to do a class that started out ready to operate? You're at a match, ready to roll, and you get 30 minutes, 1 hour in, and realize you have to start them from zero because half of them are not ready to operate. And this is where
Yeah.
I'm going because I'm triple checking something because I saw someone not ready to operate and I felt I can solve that problem up front, but I need to double up my checks. And because I'm relying on a laser hanging out on a diving board that can get fucked with so much, I need to know a little bit of data more. Like once I get it where I'm infinitely happy with my lasers parallel, I'm going to go to like 10 yards and I'm going to put the laser on my reticle and mark it. So that way, there, no matter where I'm at, I can go 10 yards and look at it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And so if I feel my laser's giving me an incorrect number, I can have a quick check
Hmm.
because there needs to be, because we're like everybody at major lands has a laser on their scope, and
Yeah.
so
Right.
seeing the problems that created means there's needs to be a new process for lasers on a scope.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I've noticed issues enough where I just kind of shelve the lasers and don't use them very often because the time needed to get ready for something, it's easier to default to another system
To
where
the
it makes sense
handheld.
to have the weapon lasers if they worked right, but you see an issue and you think, shit, I only have 5 days. I'm going to go to one that's not problematic, even if it adds a second or two
Right.
because it's reliable. But if you could get those systems to work better, obviously, just like a carbine, that's going to be faster if you could stay on the gun. But you don't want to multi-layer steps either. That was the AI. I haven't talked much about Steel Safari, but one of the issues that I identified with teams and speed was just taking too long to do stuff and then having, I mean, there's some schools of thought that, like, two is one and one is none. So you want redundancy, but you don't want redundancy if you're trying to go fast. So
No, you
if you have
can't.
your data and you get your data in your binoculars, then you write down your data again, then you confirm your data, and then you write down your data again, and then you get on your rifle and you confirm your data with your weapon mounted rangefinder. You just spent 30, 40 seconds per
Yeah.
target doing something that you didn't
The
need to
only
do
way
any of
that
it.
would work is if you were able to say you're on a laser, your partner's on a handheld, and you're doing it at the same time. And the redundancy is that one teammate has a slightly different process, although it's identical to the other person. And that difference would be handheld versus weapon.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for targets and you've got a laser on your rifle, you just need to find the targets because when you get on your rifle, you're going to have your data and you don't need to write it down. You don't need to do anything. If you're going to communicate it, but if you're both doing it at the same time, that's one thing. But if it spreads it out and so getting that system so that it's uniform and it works well, but also you need to know that it works well, and that goes into the preparation. And if you see a glitch and you have time to fix it, you could solve the problem. And if you don't have time, having a system that doesn't have a problem is the one to run. But if they're not able to test it, I can imagine a lot of people just saying like, "Well, we don't have the time to do that. We got a lot of other stuff to do." I get it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
then don't blame when you miss.
Right. Well, and even like, and Robbie's usually on. Robbie was there and had a zero problem, and he's got an AI. He's using an ATX, and I would almost guarantee that it was more laser than zero because I doubt his AI got shifted as much, but probably his laser. But Robbie's not on Wednesday. He'll probably jump on, and I could talk to him about it. But Robbie's usually in the hide, and I don't. He hasn't popped in and said hi. Um,
Well, a good system is good. I mean, if you have good equipment, it goes a long way. There's a guy in this class, he shot archery and he shot shotgun slugs to hunt, because they're from the Midwest, but he'd never shot precision or
Mm-hmm.
long range at all. So I loaned him my AI, and they had like a little competition at the end of the class, and one of the things was using craft wind and gravity ballistics to shoot a point 0.2, point 0.3, point 0.2 target at 340, 630, and 705. And this dude never shot anything like this before the 2 days, and we got the data, and I knew, obviously the gun's good and accurate, and first round impact, first round impact, first round impact, and
Yeah.
then we were going to like one MOA targets, and when we had gravity ballistics data, so it was like just dial that, but he wasn't married to things that he'd been taught before because he'd never been taught
Been
any of
taught.
it
Right.
before.
No bad
And
habits.
so I was like, dial 630. Well, what's that? Well, add 3/10 to your 600 data. He adds 3/10 to 600 data. I'm like, what percentage did you come up with for wind? It's like this. Yeah, but that's a small target. I was like, well, what's your high and low? Put that on the one MOA target. Bang, first round impact. He was hitting things so well, like he has no idea how well he performed.
Right.
But one, it was a rifle capable of shooting small amounts, and two, is person just saying, "I'm gonna do what I was told and not think about all this other nonsense." And he was, I was like, "Holy shit!" Other than being slow and not really knowing what he was doing, just doing what he had been hearing, which is pretty simple. You got 10 elevations. Let's round between them to get distances, and then here's
Right.
how we do wind. Dial this, hold this, and see what happens. His hit percentage was very high on one MOA targets. I was like,
Well,
hell
we're
yeah.
doing more with less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're increasing the amount of information that we're taking in, and we're working less. We're not relying on the equipment. We're not relying electronics. We're looking at it like I was thinking last night in my head and I didn't write it down, but about the gun number, with some of these guys and like with the 6 ARC, the 80 grain, I'm calling a 5 mile an hour gun. And the thought process is, I'm thinking in 5 mile an hour increments until I get to 10, and then I'm just doubling it. But everything in between 5 and 10 is just another mile an hour, which is just another tenth. So I just think in fives. And everything between 5 and 10 is just another mile an hour, which translates to just another tenth. When I get to 10, I'm doubling it. And then between 10 and 15, everything's just another mile an hour until I triple it. And then I go from there. And it's like, it people are kind of overcomplicating it because they don't understand how much we have simplified it.
Right, right. And it just hasn't percolated out, but it's very intuitive. It simplifies things to the point where I think some people hear it and they go, That's impossible. There's no way that works. It's too simple.
Yeah.
I got to have all these charts and doodads, and it's like,
Well, it's
just
the
try
joke
it
with
and tell me if you
right.
hit.
It's the joke with the Brian Litz videos. He's getting the same advice you and I are getting to do these kind of videos, to do these talking heads, but he's telling you you really don't know what you think you see, and that if you don't do it one way, his way, it won't work. And it's like, well, no, because I'd always argue this in the past that it's the number 4. How many different ways can you get to the answer 4? Right?
Hmm.
We could do math. How many? And 4 is a small number. 4
Hmm.
is not a big number. How many different ways can you add up to 4? There's a lot. And that's all we're saying. Where he's telling you the long form way from the 1950s on how they reach 4. We're going and taking a short form way, but then looking at that math and extrapolating it out and going, well, short form actually works. Why does it work? Well, it works because of this. Well, then that means I could take short form, and what you did is you turned it into a percentage. So where the
Hmm.
short form originally fell apart at 700 yards, by adding the percentage in, we don't have that hiccup anymore. The percentage fixes the math. Where,
Right. And you in the
right,
rounding, you can't really shoot the difference.
exactly. And
But
so
I don't
what?
think it's appropriate to tell people if you can always hit the target, you don't know that you're not doing it right.
Right.
Like
Well, but that was
what?
my spindrift arguments, dude. You are
Yeah.
looking at my spindrift arguments being projected into wind. So I'm
Hmm.
saying I don't see what you're telling me. And they're saying,
Hmm.
well, you're doing it wrong. You're just including it in your wind. You're doing this. So now they're telling me my wind call is wrong. So first they told me my spindrift that I'm not using was a wind call. Now they're saying you're hitting by accident. Now they're telling
Yeah.
me my win call is wrong, on top of the fact that don't believe your lying eyes. And so it's like, wait a minute. I don't see as much spin drift as you're telling me. Yeah, you're not doing it right. You're just including it as wind. And it's like,
So
okay, well, here's my win call. Yeah, you can't do your win like that because it's not enough. And it's like, well, wait a minute. You're telling me both of my methods are incorrect, yet my hit percentage is higher than yours.
yeah, so if I'm on the rifle and you're like at 800 yards, hold left, point 0.5. So I stop and say, okay, how much do I add for spin drift on top
Right. Well,
of
that's
point
what, dude,
0.5?
that's what they were doing. At Major Land, every Army team was verbalizing spin drift. And at 1,300 yards, they used point 0.4. They used point 0.4 at 1,400. They were like
Hmm.
adding a tenth every 100 yards past 1,000. Like that was their mindset. Every 100 yards past 1,000, they added a tenth of spin drift.
I wonder if they went somewhere
Brian.
with
And it's
no
Brian
wind and
Morgan,
like
too.
literally add that,
It's
you know.
It's Hat
Yeah.
Creek and it's Litz
Hmm.
because Hat Creek uses Litz's stuff. They don't deviate.
I think yeah, that I mean shit balls.
Yeah,
Because
I
that's a
mean,
mile an hour wind. I mean that's yeah. I mean I guess a tenth is at that distance is a little less than a mile an hour wind, but you're gonna very quickly get way off, especially
right? Because they're stacking,
if I but for
guys.
speed and accuracy, if you just say hold left point six, you hold left point six and shoot, and
You
you
want to know
adjust
the
that.
real fact on spin drift?
The
It's 1 minute.
craft wind wouldn't work
Right.
if that was the issue, and it does. So I have to call bullshit because craft wind works with right wind, left wind, and it works the same, and it would deviate with distance, and it doesn't.
Exactly. And that was my arguments back in the day. When calls were that was weird. My thing went dark. When calls were never a two-way street. If you go back to all the old wind charts, they only were one direction. They didn't
Hmm.
they didn't give you a left wind call and a right wind call. They gave you a wind call. Now it's a left wind call and a right wind call. Now it's this and that. And when I grew cuz I came out of 1986 Marine Corps Sniper School. And then Brian doesn't come around until 2005, 2007. And I'm at Rifles Only for 3 years by then, almost 5 years, right? And I'm not seeing what Brian is selling. So we're on Sniper's Heart arguing this. And it's
Is there going to be a spin drift stage at the Sniper's Hide Cup?
yes, there is. Every stage is a spin drift stage according to them. So everyone has a spin drift element. That's up to you to figure out which one I added it to.
There's two plates. One of
Yeah,
them is right.
one's left. I should do that. I should do a left and right plate. Shoot the left plate, shoot the right plate. Which one did you add more spin drift for? But but anyway, that's what I'm saying. It's like so Brian walks through and he's telling you you have to you're not thinking hard enough. And we're telling you you're thinking too much.
Yeah. Well, you have to think until you have enough trust to think a little bit less. And but you got to believe the bullet. I mean,
Right.
we
Well,
always
and
come
that
back to
was
that.
my
Like if you're
argument.
always hitting a plate, then you're fucking doing it right. So
I mean, that's why I did the video that when I canted the scopes, I had the two identical Spartan precision rifles. He made me two. And they were both Sniper's High Bighorn Spartan precision rifles. I actually gave one away to a cop in Alaska because I had two of the same. And I set one up with my scope vertical. I set the other one up with my scope canted at a 0.8 degree, which I called my personal angle. And then I shot groups at 1,000 yard on an IPSC. The groups were identical. And the thing was, I was like, look, I got 4 groups on an IPSC. And I gave you the dope I used for each, and they crossed over. I'm like, it's just a number. How did I hit and shoot identical group? And it's a video. You can watch it on YouTube. And it's, I purposely canted a scope, and then I purposely didn't, and then shot the same plates. And there's 4. I did 2 groups on each side of the plate. I did one here and one here and one here and one here. And it's like,
yeah, but I do think there's a risk to that because you can see things better
yes,
than
I'm
a lot of people because I see some guys come in and they're canted so hard and they have no
yeah,
idea and they're like, why
right.
am I,
Not hitting. No,
why am I
absolutely.
off? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, they got a Harris that's like not even attached to their rifle and it's
Yeah,
wobbling
yeah.
and their rifle's like 45 degrees and they're like, something's not, my data's off. It's like, well,
Well, just
let's
like when
get
I
you.
did the video with you and I buried the level, I shot the 600 yard plate straight, and then I
Hmm.
tipped the rifle over on the really right stuff and buried the level, and then shot it and hit it immediately. I shifted my point of aim to the left a little bit because it's a wind call now, but I was still on the plate and hit it with my rifle completely sideways, not sideways, but on a 45-degree angle off my really right stuff. So I shot it
Yeah.
straight, boom, and then I just dropped it on the edge of the really right stuff and then shot it again. And it's
But
like,
that's a skill thing. Like if there was a slat,
yeah,
if there was like a loophole that you had to get your
right,
rifle sideways to,
sideways
you would know,
to move the wind call.
somebody that knew would know how to adjust appropriately and still get the impact, um, versus somebody that's doing that without knowing what they're doing
Right, you're not going to
and
hold center, shift it,
right.
shift away from the curve, and really
But
that's all you're doing. And
those guys are usually shooting 4-inch groups instead of quarter-inch groups
yeah,
like you do.
true,
So
true,
then you
true.
got all this like signal to noise issues, and that's
Well,
been a big theme
and
lately.
and
Just
and
signal.
really that's why I like what you and I are doing with the craft wind, with the putting the simplicity, with the gravity ballistics. Somebody can go from a really inexpensive $200 Bear Creek 6 arc upper and 18-inch, convert that to a bolt gun, and dope their stuff out without knowing anything. And I want a pipeline for that AR guy who's plinking away at 100, 200 yards to be able to then move into precision without somebody telling you can't, without reading a book this thick.
Right,
Because you
right.
can.
Of course you can.
Yeah. So anyway,
Of course you can. Like
yeah,
think about all the stories of all the famous snipers from the past,
right.
and then show me all the like physics books that they studied to get that good,
Yeah.
right? It's
They just shot.
probably like that many.
They just shot.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, you
And
didn't
I
read the book?" Ha ha ha.
and I would bet they were equally as curious as seeing weird shit as us on the
Hmm.
range doing it live to figure out, okay, with this system, when I do this, I should do this instead. They probably saw a quirk. Like you and I yesterday or the day before, we were looking at just holding the rifle and
Hmm.
how to hold a rifle on a game changer to not put torque in it. And
Hmm.
you know, and in a 12-inch space, we looked at 12 different ways of touching a rifle to support it without implying torque. And unfortunately, 11 of them are going to imply torque. So it's finding that one thing for you that doesn't induce error when you're supporting the shot. So we sat there for 30 minutes, here or here. Wouldn't it be cool if we had this and here or here? I remember a tool that would put it here and we could go here or here. Yeah, but that tool might tilt it like that, so we have to be over here. That was a 30-minute conversation of where to put your hand on a rifle.
Right, right. And then it opened the door to tests that we haven't done yet, but the conversation requires that we confirm our suspicions by
Right, every
trying it.
cause and effect.
And sometimes we're like, nah, it's gonna do this, and we shoot and we're like, it didn't do that. It worked even better.
Right.
And I think that's really where like the magic is with us is we don't just say, nope, it's wrong. Impossible. You gotta, torque the shit out of your bipod and do whatever. Nope, we're going to go out and test it and be surprised by the results. And I think that it's like being, they say like, oh, well, kids learn the fastest because they're curious and they're always surprised and they don't they're open to seeing a pig fly by. And that might sound like fucking crazy as an adult, but I feel like sometimes we go out there and we're like, okay, we're going to expect this, but we're open to the idea of a pig flying by. And that allows us to always grow because there's
Yeah.
always these hidden little gems that are like, are you kidding me? Like that's fucking amazing. Um, and I have a test. I have two articles. One of them's on the process, and the other one's on fundamentals and weight and acceptable accuracy. But in order to do the fundamental weight acceptable accuracy, we need to have a balanced rifle that's like super, super, super light, and then have a way to keep it balanced but take a pound off
I could do
every
that with my
iteration.
6.5 PRC. My 6.5 PRC has the Hunt 26 and it's light. It's carbon fibered out, and we could put weights on the M lock and then take weights off because that Hunt 26 rifle, I think, without anything really, is right at 10 pounds. And then we can,
Because check this out.
yeah,
That I'll go into this because and this is from
unless we
our stuff
AR.
with light guns. But first of all, the rifle
Why'd it go
has to be
dark again?
balanced. So rifle balance is fundamental. You can't have a light rifle that's butt heavy or nose heavy. You have to have a good balance. But then the weight does a couple of things. And there's a guy that has been messaging saying, why don't you and I advocate super light rifles? And I said, well, super light rifles are cool, but it's hard to get. And he said, yeah, he thinks my interpretation of what he said is that it's an industry thing trying to push heavier products, not
Right.
they can be shot well. And I said, well, I don't
Weight is
know what the
stability.
industry
So,
does.
right. Weight is
I
stability.
don't think it's a conspiracy that like, we need heavy guns because they're more expensive and we're going to make more money. I think, you know, my observation is that if we take a 25-pound rifle, more people are going to shoot smaller groups with that than if we have a 8-pound rifle and have all
Yes.
the people shoot the same groups, even if they're inherently as accurate as one another. And so there's a scale of mass and light, and your fundamentals are on that sliding scale. And if your fundamentals improve, you'll be able to go lighter. But I think we could quantify with pounds where someone's fundamentals are at
Mm-hmm.
by taking a heavy rifle, having them shoot a group, taking off weight, shoot a group, take off weight, shoot a group, take off weight. And when that group opens up, now they're in the sweet spot for learning fundamentals. Because
Um,
if you have a 30-pound rifle, it's going to be really hard to teach you fundamentals. But if we find that threshold of weight where you're at just
yeah,
a
like
little
12,
more,
to me 12
a
is a
little,
good happy zone for that. Where the light breaks is like 12, 12 and a half. I think that would be the edge of minimal weight. Like 10, because
But
of our
that's what I'm saying. Like, there's
right.
hunter rifles that are
Well,
8 pound, 300 Win Mags, and
exactly. It's the caliber to weight ratio that causes the problem because the brakes. Because think about it, they put a Voss brake on a 300 Win Mag that weighs 8 pounds, but then they'll put a 4-port chamber brake on a 6 millimeter that weighs 20 pounds. They're backwards. So if you put a 5-port brake on an 8-pound rifle, you would probably shoot it better than the no break that they do now. And but then it's the sound because the big calibers sound fucks people. So you'd have to ear them up really well with the ported brakes because then they're going to flinch. And it's the caliber. If we did everybody with a 6.5, I bet you we can go to 8 pounds. If we put them up to a 300 PRC, I think it's 12 to 15 pounds. And so from there, I think it becomes caliber dependent. Why 6 arc? Because then I can go lighter with that. I bet you can give a 6 arc to an 8 pound rifle to a person and they would do fine with it. But give them that same 8 pound rifle with a 300 PRC, problem.
yeah. Well, like that, the quest for the perfect circle, like that Monkey King thing
Yes.
with the 10
Yes.
criteria, and then everything is 1 to 10, and then 10 categories, 1 to 10. I'm
Yeah, that
thinking
SF
if we
Matrix
pick a
thing.
lightweight, if we, whatever the lightest weight, realistically, we could get one of our systems, but then weight it 1 pound at a time, keeping it perfectly balanced, with the lightest being 10 points and the heaviest, 10 pounds heavier being 1 point. We could quantify shooters' fundamentals on there and say, okay, here's your training weight,
Yeah.
because you're gonna see a fundamental flaw, because that is where you're going to have it expressed. You'll see it on paper, and then you'll know, okay, I need to work this skill set. And then when it goes away, you could go down a pound, and then you're going to start to see it again. Because, and also, like when you opened up the ball head and was shooting on the loose ball head, same thing. If your fundamentals, if you have a bad trigger press on a ball head that's not tight, you're going to see
Well, that was
movement.
when I told you to do that yesterday. I was kind of weird because you were like, "Why am I shooting with it loose?" I'm like, "No, dude, shoot it loose." And you were questioning me, and I was like, "No, shoot it loose." And you're like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Keep it unlocked and shoot it with it balanced." And he's like this, but you like 4 times you asked me to clarify. I'm
Well,
like,
because
"Yeah,
I was like, dude, you're like, I'm like, I'm gonna shoot. I'm like, fuck. Okay, I felt like, it was like, oh, shoot this one on my way, play it offhand really quick. Like, oh, you're gonna make me look bad. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, okay. And I'm like, all right. So I'm thinking, okay, trigger press, 90 degrees, straight back. Come on, keep it. No, come on, come on. And then it went in the little black dot, but I was like, Jesus, like, this is a risky shot.
yeah, yeah." My
But
my
the
camera's
fucking thing stayed
overheating.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But I
Everything was
was, yeah,
perfect. It was dead on.
right, right. But
Yeah.
it was one of those things where I'm like, dude, this is so unstable. Okay, are you sure? Like, wait a minute. Like, really keep it loose? Like, yeah, okay. So it's like, all right, all right. I'm gonna keep it steady. I tested my natural point of aim. Like, all right, I'm 90 degrees, 90 degrees. All right, it's still good. And then it kept, but I, I I also think that that went very well because you had put the weights in such a way that when it recoiled, the whole system, it wasn't like it
Yes, it
went
didn't tip.
crazy.
It didn't tip. I spent extra time when I put that action into that ATX chassis. I reset everything back up and I moved it around and I specifically played with it and changed how I balanced it. I didn't just balance it to hold, I rebalanced it to shoot. And it was kind of crazy that it kind of fell in. And even with that one weight where it was, it's so out of like, it's in such a weird spot, but I can
Mhm.
index to it. And then, like I was telling you, it became a mindset thing for me because my hand touches it and it's just a comfort point for my hand. and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
my hand likes being here.
And that you guys probably know what we're talking about, but if you're on a ball head and you have it totally undone, his rifle was balanced so that the ball head was completely wide open, but the rifle was like this. But any input anywhere and the rifle's wiggling, but it was on the balance point, but wide open. And I thought, shit, anything a shooter does to their rifle is going to cause it to. I mean, even wind or who
Yeah,
knows what, and it would be like all over the place. But it was balanced perfect, and if you applied perfect inputs and outputs, it stayed there. And when it shot, it just stayed there.
yeah.
You know, like it didn't go boosh
Mhm.
because it wasn't butt heavy. It didn't have
It didn't
ports
try to
going in different
pull you
directions.
off balance. It didn't try to move you off balance with recoil. It was so tuned up with that six arc and the way the balance way I changed those weights around, the recoil didn't give you any of that movement. And so it
Which
was
makes me
money.
wonder. People say like, "Oh, well, when you shoot, all of the physics makes your sight picture end up like this." I don't think that's true. Because when we do it off these bags on a balanced rifle, it comes back. I think when it goes up, it's because your face is pushing down,
Yes.
or your bag is too soft and you're over relying on your bag, or
Our
something in
face.
the rear, or you shoot and hang down, or like on the shot, the shooter is doing something. Because when we've done these tests, like on a bag, and then again on this ball head that I thought was like setting me up for failure, it just comes back and you stay on it. And the discussions and arguments and points that people say that when it comes, there's physics and it's spinning and the energy's doing all this crazy stuff. That's pretty minor.
Yeah. It's noise in the
Like
system.
recoil is
I'm not
a
selling
couple
noise.
a couple pounds of force of recoil. It's not going to move a 14-pound gun
Yeah.
physically up like that. I think
That
we're
one that
settling somehow.
that 108 grain bullet isn't moving you and that 16-pound rifle. You know what
Right.
I
That'd be
mean?
like if
But
a fly landed on your arm
right.
and you drive off the road because like, oh shit, that little fly.
Yeah. Or the girls that
Like,
crash cars because they find a tick on their leg when they're driving. There's a tick on their leg crawling and they crash their cars. There's videos. You could find it. But yes, so anyway, my camera's starting to overheat and get me dark. But anyway, yes. And we'll talk more about
oh
this
shit,
this
it's
week.
been 2 hours.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
totally. We're having a blast. But that's the thing. We're testing, we're looking at this. Don't rely on the old norms. Our stuff is changing, and that's what the Hyatt is about. That's what Riflecraft is about. We had a great 2 days of shooting and learning and doing stuff. I got video I got to go edit once I figure out my Apple. I'm so mad at Apple, but this is what we're doing. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. So many people online, man. It's been a blast all morning. This is where our heads go. We're not selling you noise. We're selling you ease. We're selling you a path. We're selling you a pipeline where you're working smarter, not harder. There's no reason why you should be breaking out a calculator and trying to do math on the line. It should be easy enough in your head that you go, I'm thinking in this, I'm thinking like this. 5 mile an hour increments, it's 8, I'm adding 3/10 more. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That's it. It's not, it's third grade numbers, guys, that we're bringing this back into. You don't need to be a PhD or a rocket scientist to do this. This was never meant to be rocket science, right? It was meant to be a tool for the everyday frontiersman to use. They were successful out on the frontier for a reason because they thought different. We're trying to bring it back to that frontier thinking. Cool. What do you got, Chris?
The Hide, go to thehide.tv, go to the Riflecraft channel and
Mm-hmm.
take Craft Wind. It'll be the cheapest, mind-blowing change to your wind you've ever done. And it'll detach you from the calculators and make you that frontiersman that can feed yourself rather than being fed BS through your phone.
Right. I mean, I could sell you a narrative all day, man. I'm not looking to do that because I'm telling you
I
where
am.
my head's at. Yeah, he is, but I'm
Yeah,
telling you where my head's at. So,
yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. Tell your buddies, man. Usually Wednesdays, I might be traveling this Wednesday again or Thursday. I think I'm traveling Thursday. Wednesday will be on. I just got to see what day I'm traveling. I'm going to Phoenix. Go Larson today, Martinsville. We're looking forward to it, but we'll be in Phoenix at the championship. We'll be at the Arca, the Xfinity, and the Cup. If you message me somewhere and you're around there in that area, we'll say hi. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm flying to the Hyde on Thursday. Yeah, I'm traveling this Thursday and I'm traveling next Thursday to Corpus Christi. So
Yeah.
heck yeah.
All right.
But and maybe we'll be here. So if you guys want to pick up the conversation, maybe on Wednesday at 6, if
All
Frank's
right.
not
We're out.
traveling. All right.